How was I supposed to know? Ousted Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan defends his meeting with Putin on the same day that Russia invaded Ukraine. Imran Khan visited Moscow on February 23 and 24 for sit-down talks with Putin. Hours before they shook hands, Russian forces started shelling Ukraine. Khan defended his actions, saying the meeting had been planned in advance. Imran Khan has defended meeting with Vladimir Putin on the day Russia invaded Ukraine, saying, "How the hell was I supposed to know?" The ousted Pakistani Prime Minister went to Moscow on February 23 and held face-to-face talks with the Russian leader the following day and shook his hand, just hours after forces started shelling. I have never believed in military solutions, so never did I endorse that. Ours was a bilateral meeting. It was planned long before I was elected by 220 million people of Pakistan to serve them. My number one priority is, there are 50 million Pakistanis below the poverty line. I was not elected to correct all the wrongs that are going on in the world. My responsibility was my country. All my relationships, whether it was with China, with the United States, with Russia, were for the benefit of our own people. We didn't realize that when I would reach there Putin would go into Ukraine. How was I supposed to know, and how can you be punished for that? Khan added that the purpose of his Kremlin visit was to discuss bilateral agreements with Russia. Pakistan was criticized at the start of the war for failing to condemn Russia's savage attacks on Ukraine. The country regularly abstained on UN resolutions to denounce Russia, and a group of envoys slammed the country as undemocratic. Khan said at the time that European countries had not censured India for its actions in Kashmir, a mountainous region over which Pakistan and India have fought 2 wars. He said, "We are friends with Russia, and we are also friends with America, we are friends with China and with Europe, we are not in any camp." Khan, now Pakistan's top opposition leader, was ousted in a no-confidence vote in April after some of his party's lawmakers and a key coalition partner defected. He has claimed that his ouster was a plot between the opposition and the United States. Washington has denied allegations of any involvement in Pakistan's internal politics. Khan has now warned the government to stage fresh elections or face mass protests, after leading thousands of supporters to the capital Islamabad in a showdown with his political rival. Putin loses another colonel in Ukraine. Close ally of Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov is latest to be killed as death toll among high ranks hits 49. Lieutenant Colonel Daimayev killed Tuesday by shell in Luhansk, it is claimed. Daimayev was the deputy commander of a Chechen Special Forces battalion. Pictures show him posing alongside feared Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov. It brings the total number of Russian colonels killed fighting to at least 49. Russia has lost another colonel in Ukraine as Vladimir Putin's top brass continues to suffer heavy casualties in his miscalculated. Lieutenant Colonel Daimayev, deputy commander of the 4th Battalion of the Akhmat Kadyrov Special Forces Regiment, was killed Tuesday by an artillery barrage in the Donbas region, Telegram channel Baza reported today. Daimayev was riding in a military SUV through the village of Kamishivka, Luhansk province, when it was hit by a Ukrainian shell, according to the site, which is thought to have links to Russian intel. It brings the total number of Russian colonels killed fighting to at least 49, though no official tally has been published by either Kyiv or Moscow. The commander, a friend of feared Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov, was said to have been killed instantly alongside his driver. 2 Chechen police officers were also said to have been killed, with another 4 wounded. Their conditions are not clear. Chechen Special Forces, known colloquially as Kadyrovites after their leader, have increasingly been dragged into combat in Ukraine after Russia's military was mauled, failing to take. Videos show they were heavily involved in fighting in Mariupol, and have also been involved in trench warfare in Donbas, alongside the armed forces of the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic. High-ranking commanders have also been dragged into the bloodshed. thought to be because poor organization has forced them to the front to oversee the fight. Just last week, Russia confirmed that Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Dosyagayev, 34, believed to be one of the country's top paratroopers, had been killed. Dosyagayev was a commander of an airborne assault battalion of the 104th Paratrooper Regiment, which had been recognized as Russia's most elite. Troops from the 104th were reportedly in Bucha, the scene of alleged rape and torture atrocities committed by Putin's forces earlier in the war. Colonel Vladimir Ivanov, 41, part of the Defense Ministry's Department of Information and Mass Communication, was also confirmed dead. Ivanov had been killed back in March, but his death was only announced recently, thought to be a deliberate tactic by Russia to keep the true toll of its war hidden. Though the exact number of Russian forces killed in the fighting is unclear, perhaps even to Putin's commanders, Western intelligence estimates that more than 15,000 have been killed. Kyiv puts the number significantly higher, at more than 30,000. U.S. officials said Tuesday that some 20% of Russia's combat forces in Ukraine, estimated at 150,000 before the war started, are now out. That would mean 30,000 killed or wounded in action. America also believes that Russia has lost more than 1,000 tanks and is struggling to replace them due to sanctions, perhaps explaining why 50-year-old models were recently filmed heading to the front, having been taken out of long-term. Russia is currently fighting a bloody battle for control of the Donbas region, with both sides thought to be suffering heavy losses on the front line. Described as fighting is currently concentrated around the city of Severodonetsk, one of the last Ukrainian strongholds in Luhansk province, which appears on the verge of falling to Russian forces. Putin's men will then only need to capture the city of Lysychansk, located just a few hundred yards away across an industrial zone, to claim ownership of Luhansk. The cities of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, around 35 miles west of Lysychansk, will then be the main obstacles to capturing the whole of the Donbas. Ukraine has attempted to play down recent Russian advances, saying they provide propaganda for Putin but little tactical advantage. Kyiv's generals still believe they can ultimately win the war, provided Western allies keep supplying weapons for their troops to push back Russian forces. To that end, Joe Biden on Tuesday announced the U.S. will be sending advanced rocket artillery to the front lines as part of a new $700 million shipment. Though he did not specify the system in question, it is expected he will send M270 MLRS, a Soviet-era artillery system designed specifically to counter Russia. He made the announcement in an op-ed for the New York Times, in which he laid out America's ultimate goal in Ukraine, to weaken Russia to the point where Ukraine can negotiate a peace deal it is satisfied with. We want to see a democratic, independent, sovereign and prosperous Ukraine with the means to deter and defend itself against further aggression, he said.